friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to Bookmas Day 7. Come here. Jelly Bean wants to stop in and say hi like normal. He probably just wants a scratch. For today's video, I have my best of, so like my most favorite reads of the year. This was really hard to do because I've read 241 books in 2021, which is just freaking crazy. So I picked my top 14. Least favorite to most favorite, but these are still my top tier books. Let's dive in. So we're gonna start at number 14 with Here and Gone by Halyn Beck. I almost put this on my most surprising list because it was a 5 out of 5 star, but it surprised me because this follows this girl named Audra. Her name is Audra. But she gets pulled over by the police as she's making an escape from her abusive husband. She is traveling across the country. She's trying to get to California, and she gets stopped in Arizona where the police are telling her, well, she gets arrested, and the police are telling her that she didn't have kids in her car, that it was just her and a couple of empty car seats. And from there, the book goes on, but typically, when books have to do with children getting hurt or with a thriller surrounding kids, it's a no bueno from me. Like, I can't handle that, and there are reasons for that, but it's just a big no-no. This one executed it perfectly. It is a really intense thriller because you don't know if you can trust Audra or if you can trust the cop because their stories are different. So, who's telling the truth and what happened to her kids if she had them, and if she didn't have them with her, did she leave them when she left her husband, or did she do something more sinister to her kids along the way from Pennsylvania to Arizona? So these kids could literally be anywhere in the United States, it seems like, and I was blown away by the truth of what happened and by the ending. I thought that I had it all figured out, and then it just went a complete different direction. And those are the type of thrillers that I really enjoy. So I'm actually surprised this is so far on my list of favorites, but this was a really good reading here. Then number 13 is I Killed Zoe Sopranos by Kit Frick. I cannot believe I read this in 2021 because I read this in January of 2021, and it feels like I read it so long ago, but at the same time the year went by so quick, so I don't know. But this follows this girl named Anna. I think her name is Anna. Yes, Anna, who at the very beginning of this book is confessing to killing Zoe Sopranos. And then you get the story told in flashbacks about what really happened to Zoe Sopranos. So basically, Anna moves to the small town where she resembles Zoe Sopranos a lot, and and Zoe Sopranos went missing the previous year. And there is a true crime podcaster who also used to be Zoe's friend, who is trying to investigate what really happened to Zoe, because she's just listed as a missing person, but she doesn't think that her friend would just up and abandon her if she was just like a runaway or a missing person. Like, there's something wrong. And so Anna and this true crime podcaster team up and become friends and try to learn what happened to Zoe. And then ultimately it ends with Anna confessing to murdering her. But did she really murder her, or is she taking the fall for someone else? Or how is it all connected? Because you're following Anna a year after Zoe went missing, but yet she's confessing to murdering her. So how do they connect? So then number 12 is actually one that I read on Kindle, and I don't own a physical copy, but and that is Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. I can't really give much of the plot away because it's like under 200 pages, I believe, and so much is crammed into it, but I'm just gonna give you the synopsis. Don't take it at face value though, because when I heard the synopsis, I'm like, ew, that book sounds disgusting, like I'm never gonna read it. And now here it is on my favorites of 2021 list. It's amazing. So Night of the Mannequins basically follows these teenagers who want to prank one of their friends because they like to prank each other a lot. And to prank her, they go and get this old mannequin that they used to play with as kids, and they set it up in the movie theater. And when the plan was for her to go have to clean up after them, and when she's cleaning up, she just sees the mannequin and he doesn't move or anything, you know, and he just kind of creeps her out, and then she finds out that it's a mannequin. But what really happens is that at the end of the movie, the mannequin gets up and walks away. And then scary stuff starts happening. But it is a slasher. I can't say any... It's a slasher. And I can't really say anything else without giving spoilers, but please don't take it at face value, because that synopsis made me like really want to not read it. But for some reason I picked it up on Kindle, and you know what? I am so happy I did. Okay, so this is number 11, is The Night Swim by Megan Goulding. This kind of reminds me of I Killed Zoe Sopranos because they both have a true crime podcast element. So in The Night Swim, you follow Rachel, who is a true crime podcaster, and she goes to different towns to cover different cases on her podcast. So she's in this small town as there's a rape trial going on in this small town, and she's going to this trial, so you get a lot of the trial. When she's not in the courtroom, she is, focused on her podcast. You get parts of the podcast. But she's also getting these weird letters delivered to her car and on her doorstep. And it's basically this person who wants to remain anonymous, who wants help finding their sister that went missing years before. So you're also getting parts of this case of going, investigating what happened to this person's sister while they're leaving her creepy messages. And you get Rachel's podcast, and you get the courtroom thrills. And it's just magic. Like, it seems like that has a lot going on. And yes, there is a lot going on. Essentially, you're following two different storylines, though, because the podcast kind of goes with both. And the letters that are coming kind of go with the other one about the missing girl. And I just thought this book was phenomenal. 10, top 10, ooh, 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 is The Kiss Quotient by Helen Wong. So, I read 2 of her books. She has a third one that I own, but I haven't read it yet. But this author is on the Asperger's spectrum, and her writing is kind of quirky and a little bit awkward, and her main characters are very, very awkward. And I love that. I love the autism rep in this book. That is by far my favorite autism rep book that I've read. I haven't read a whole lot. I want to read more. You follow Stella, who is very successful in her career, but she's not very successful with her relationships. And she wants that to change because she's almost 30, and she wants a relationship. And she thinks that she's too awkward and weird to have a boyfriend or anything like that. So she hires this escort to help teach her how to be a good girlfriend, and then maybe even hires him in the bedroom. And, it's so sweet. This is probably the sweetest romance that I've read maybe in my entire life, because I kind of just learned that I like adult romance books this year. And this is perfection. Mostly, it's just this wholesome, sweet romance that has the fake dating trope. So, book 9 is Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Caesar. I've talked so much about this book that this should not be a surprise to you at all. This is exactly what it sounds like. A clown in a cornfield trying to kill teenagers who are having a party in this barn. And it's a great slasher. And I think this is the book that made me realize that I love slasher books. I absolutely love them. And I'm going to continue to read more slasher books because I need this in my life. Oh, and apparently next year this is getting a sequel, so I cannot wait for that. Number 8 is The Love Hypothesis by Allie Hazelwood. This has fake dating in it. You follow Olive, who is a PhD student, and she, at the very beginning, is telling her friend, oh yeah, it's fine if you date this guy that she might have had a thing for. And her friend doesn't really believe her, so she just goes up to the first guy she sees and kisses him. And it turns out that it's a professor. Not one of her professors, because it's not, like, directly above her, but he works at the place that she's a student as a PhD student. So it's kind of awkward, and then she asks him to fake date her, and he needs the fake date as publicity so that they take him more seriously at work, and they don't think that he's just gonna move away. And she needs the fake dating so that her friend gets off her back. And this is so freaking cute. Again, it's just a cute fake dating romance. Maybe a little bit like, not super forbidden, but maybe just a little bit, because he is a professor and she's a student. So there's a little bit of like, ooh, should we not, you know, type of thing. But yet again, it's just so much fun. Okay, so number 7, I don't own anymore. I did, but I don't. I did this Christmas book exchange with some of my friends, and I thought one of my besties would really appreciate this book, so I gave her my copy. And that is Felix Ever After by Kason Calendar. So you follow Felix Love, who is a transgender boy in high school who is someone at the very beginning of the book has put pictures of Felix before he was Felix in this like photo gallery thing that they were doing at school, and the whole book is intended for you to find the person that did that to Felix, but you kind of learn a lot about Felix, and it's got great transgender rep. Kason Calendar is actually transgender, and they refer to themselves as they, them. So it was just a wonderful, sweet, heartbreaking novel in which I felt so much for Felix. Like, I felt like I was going through everything that Felix was going through as well. And it was just a great coming of age novel about him finding himself. And originally he was just looking for the person that, you know, showed the world who he used to be, because that's his secret. He shouldn't have to share that with everyone. And someone forced his hand and made him. It originally just started off as this mystery of who did this to me, and turns into something much more about finding his identity and maybe falling in love for the first time. Okay, and then number 6 is another thriller. It's The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. I have read all but one Ruth Ware book, or attempted to. Usually they're DNFs for me. This is the only book by Ruth Ware that I've liked. You follow Rowan, who is trying to get a nanny job. So she gets this nanny job for this very rich family who has like a smart home. And creepy things start happening. So you wonder if it's the smart home, or if it's haunted, or something else is going on. And you follow from Rowan's perspective after she's been arrested for a crime that happened at that house that she may or may not have committed. And she's writing a letter to this attorney to get her, you know, to help her, because she needs good representation. And this was so twisted. I did not see any of this coming in this book. It was twisted and dark, and I did not know what to believe in this book. And it made me question myself. And when a book can do that, you got it going on. So this is one of my favorite thrillers ever. If you only read one Ruth Ware book, please let it be The Turn of the Key, because it is amazing. It's a letter to an attorney, so it reads more like a letter than anything, but it also tells the incredible story. And like these twists I did not see coming at all. If you want something kind of ominous and creepy and unreliable. So we are on my top 5 books of 2021. 5 is Pretty Little Wife by Darby Kane. There's more than one way to end a marriage. So this follows Lila, who put her husband's body somewhere to presumably be found, and when it's not found, she goes back to the location that his body was, and his body is no longer there. But dead people can't just get up and walk away, can they? And then, to make matters worse, she's starting to get these really creepy notes left on her doorstep and her car, and it looks like someone's stalking her. Is it her dead husband? Is he really dead? Or is something more sinister at play? This just blew my mind when I read it. I read this book in one day. Like, this entire book in one sitting. Other than getting up to go to the bathroom twice, I read this whole 400-page book in one sitting. So mind-blowing. And it's like you get to read these notes with her, and a lot of the stuff in the notes is only things that her husband would know. So my mind was blown. I was shook when I read this, because that's just like the very beginning synopsis, but so much happens in here. But I cannot tell you a single word more because spoilers. 4, Sex Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And this is about these 2 radio show hosts. Well, these 2 people that work at a radio show together, and they pitch that they should have like the X Talk, which is 2 exes on the same show, you know, kind of bantering about why they didn't work out and giving relationship advice on air. And that's like an interesting idea. However, the radio station doesn't want to hire people who are actually exes. So the 2 people that you follow in this book have to pretend to be exes on air and like fake this relationship that didn't work out. And so it's kind of like a twist on fake dating, and by faking their relationship or like an old relationship, they might fall in love, and it is just so freaking cute. The banter in this book is so good, and they're kind of like enemies to lovers, which I found this year is something that I love. I guess it's more like hate to love, because they are not enemies as they're like trying to kill each other. They just really don't like each other. So hate to love. Final 3 in 3rd place. This was really hard, by the way, to pick my final 3. So in 3rd place, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So this came out last year, and I did not jump on the bandwagon right away. In January of 2021, I did this reading vlog in which it was like a scavenger hunt. I would read one book, and then something based on this book, I would pick another and keep going and going and going. I think I read 5 books for that scavenger hunt. It was really fun. So this was the last book I picked for that scavenger hunt. I'll link it up here if I remember. You could go check it out. But I went into this thinking I was going to hate it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm only reading it because Amanda really liked it, but I don't think I'm going to like it at all. I freaking loved this book. Hear me out. The first 300 years of this book. Okay, so you follow Addie LaRue, who's supposed to get married, I think, at 17. And instead she runs away and she meets Luke, who makes her wish come true. She wants to live forever. What she doesn't know is that as soon as she leaves the room, everyone will forget her. So it's a very lonely, depressing existence for 300 years. And the first part of this book was very slow for me. It was very boring, very slow, very repetitive. But I kept going with this book, and the ending at first made me really, really mad because I was a sobbing mess when I read it. And now that it's settled quite a bit, you know, it's been almost a year, I think that was a perfect ending. If you've read it and you know, then you know. A very beautiful lyrical book, which typically isn't my jam. It's fantasy and historical fiction, which again is not my jam. So by all accounts, I should hate this book, but I can't help but love it. Addie LaRue goes 300 years of this lonely, depressing existence, which I obviously haven't lived 300 years, but I've been that lonely, depressed person before, and it's sad and it's terrible, and I think that everyone can relate to it at one point or another. So if you're in that headspace and you still haven't read this book, don't pick this up right now. Wait until you're in a better headspace to take it all in. But it's just beautiful and powerful. And after 300 years, someone finally remembers her, and it's not what you think. Or maybe it is, because I was trying to figure out how. But then when you find out how or why, it's just magical. And heartbreaking. And everything all in one book. Round number 2, we're going to change gears from the sad, lonely, pure magic to a different form of magic. So my second spot is The Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. This, I will not shut up about this book, so you probably already knew. But basically, in this book, you follow Scarlet, who is pledging Kappa Roo Nu, or the Ravens. It's interesting because the Ravens are actually witches who perform magic during meetings and things. And then there's this, I would definitely list this as dark academia murder mystery, because there's murders happening all around campus, and these sorority sisters, who happen to be witches, are investigating. And the ending, I did not see the ending coming. That was the furthest thing from my mind. And this is the first in a duology, so keep that in mind. I would really like the second one in my hands right now. Magical and dark and murder, mystery, dark academia, and I just had a lot of fun with this one. Okay, and now we're down to our number 1 spot. Drum roll, please. That was a terrible drum roll. But I have 2 books in my number 1 spots. One for each hand. The thing is that I thought I had a clear first place winner. But I was thinking about it. I've read both of these books 3 times this year. 3 times for both of these books. And it makes sense because one is a romance, which I fell in love with this year. And one is a thriller, which is kind of what my channel started on thrillers. So why not mix them together and get one romance and one thriller. The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. This was the only Riley Sager up until Survive the Night, which didn't come out till this year. This was the only one I hadn't read yet. I read it 3 times this year. It is a mystery in which this girl named Emma goes to summer camp when she's younger. I think she's like 13. Her bunkmates, her cabin mates, they go missing while she's there, and it kind of stops the camp, and everyone goes home. And 10 years later, I want to say it's 10 years later, they open the camp back up for one last finale year, and Emma gets invited to go, so she goes, and she's still trying to investigate what happened to her friends 10 or 15 years ago. 15 years ago. And then you have these 2 timelines, the 15 years ago and today, and they're both very atmospheric and dark, and I didn't guess what was going to happen. I thought it was the more obvious choice. That's all that I can say. But oh my gosh, this messed with me, especially the ending, like the very end, the last twist, because in this book there's more than one twist, and I ate this book up. These are both in number 1 spot. I'm allowed to do that. This is the Honeymooners by Christina. This one is yet another one that I've read 3 times this year. This follows Olive, who is Amy's twin sister, and Amy gets married at the very beginning of this book, and the entire wedding party gets sick with food poisoning, but Olive, who's allergic to shellfish, didn't eat it so she doesn't get sick, and Ethan, who is the groom's brother, didn't eat it because he doesn't like buffets. And so Olive takes her sister's non-refundable honeymoon, and she has to go with Ethan, who is someone that she really hates. Like, they hate each other. So it's hate to love. It's a fake honeymoon, so they have to pretend to be fake married. And it's just so swoon-worthy, and it gives me all the feels, okay? It was, like, adorable, and I just loved every freaking second of this book. I loved it so much I read it 3 times. So these are my number 1 books of the year. Share some of your favorite books with me down below, or like your favorite of the year. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will catch you tomorrow with my worst of 2021 list.